Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership.
So hi Steve, how are you doing today?
I am very good today, Christine. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited about our episode today because we are going to be interviewing you today. So you get to be in our hot seat and we're going to discuss the challenges in not knowing your numbers. And we're also going to discuss the challenges of the ups and downs of owning a business.
Great. I get to do my sharing today, reveal all of my challenges and tribulations over my career. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I know in the book we dove deep into your story, which was inspiration for me when I originally heard it, because I've been working with businesses for over 25 years, and when you and I sat down and talked about your story of how you began and your journey through business and the challenges, it was very emotional. I think that's common in business where there's a lot of emotion in it. We have a lot invested. And as business owners and entrepreneurs, we make some pretty big mistakes that we don't realize that we're making, in the moment. So I think it would be great if we talk about, where you started and in your journey of opening up your business and entrepreneurship.
So when I started my business, the goal really was to not work for minimum wage, which when I started my business in 1983 was $3.25 an hour. And my big business plan was if I had 8 lawns for $25 for each lawn, that would give me $200 a week minus gas and my insurance. That would get me at about the same rate or same pay that I was making working 40 hours for minimum wage. So that was the plan. Could I make $125 a week in 20 hours or less as opposed to working 40 hours? And that's how I started my business, started just putting flyers out and knocking on doors. And I ended up hooking up with another landscaper who had too many lawns, and he started to subcontract me out to pick the lawns up that he couldn't take. And that was in 1983. So it was, wow. That's 40 years ago this year in 2023.
Right. And can you imagine $125 a week? Like we could survive on that, right? Like times have changed, my friend.
Oh yeah. At 18, $150 a week was pretty good. Fuel was, I think gas was 99 cents a gallon. So it was a big difference. So that's how I started. Then I did it all the way through college, which, so I did 5 years of college because I double majored, plus I ran my business. And I was making about $40,000 net. We were doing about $120,000 a year, and I was keeping about $40,000 for my pay. So I was pretty fat and happy. Had a nice car in college, paid for college out of pocket, and my college friends helped me in the summer, spring, and fall. And so it was a pretty good lifestyle all through college.
Yeah, and I almost feel like that's where it always begins, right? It's like you started up, things are going great. You're like, I'm making all this great money. And then, your business starts to scale and grow. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, we step into it and we go, oh, I've got this. If I did this and I rocked this, I can step into the next level and I'm going to rock that too. And, you kind of start growing your business and easing into it with these baby steps, but then suddenly it's a whole new animal that you're trying to tame.
Yeah, real life shows up. And so then, I graduated from college and I'm still running my business. I got married and my wife was working and I was working, so which made it even kind of easier financially. And then, so we decided to have a family. And my daughter was born, and my wife, we moved back to my hometown, and my wife was not going to be working outside of the business or outside of the home. And she did work with me for years, running a lawnmower, But we didn't have her additional revenue, and I was the only game in town. I was the breadwinner at that point, and we lived pretty frugally and everything, and we were doing okay actually, and things were good. And then I had this inspiration to grow the business, and that's where things started to really kind of take a turn for the worse because I wasn't running my books on QuickBooks. I had a bookkeeping service, Blue Jay bookkeeping service. We would meet monthly and do all the billing. And I was doing all the checks out of, it was like a one write system, where as you write the checks, it would copy it down on the sheet. And that's what I would bring to my accountant at the end of the year, all those sheets and the canceled checks. So not really systemized. And I was learning a lot more about lawn care, though, a lot more about landscaping and focusing on that type of stuff.
So at this point, you're married, you have, kids, you are, building out the business, and it's still kind of you and family and maybe just hiring like a part-time person here or there to kind of fill in. So when did the challenges, like at this point, what are the challenges and pain points that you're experiencing, just kind of still in that, small entrepreneurship circle?
So at that point, we were doing about $265,000 a year, and I was making about $65,000 a year, which was good money. It was over $1,000 a week, and this is back in 1996. And so I was doing pretty good. We weren't going on fancy vacations, but we had a nice minivan for my wife. We had our house, and things were good. And then I had an opportunity to buy another business, and quickly, which I did. It was a guy that worked in the same town as us. We were mowing lawns and treating lawns at that point. And we quickly went from mowing lawns and a little bit of landscaping and treating lawns to totally full service landscape installation. We ramped up the snow plowing. I had one truck that we plowed maybe 5 or 6 accounts for. And now we had, 25 accounts, commercial accounts, including a high school. And we went from having 3 or 4 employees to 14 employees, and we went from $265,000 to a little over $800,000 in revenue in 3 years.
Wow.
And the company was growing, and I had no idea what a profit and loss statement was. I had no idea what a balance sheet was. I didn't do any of that type of accounting. I was still doing my bookkeeping with the Blue Jay bookkeeping service. And also had my one sheet. I did then hire a part-time bookkeeper, but she took over the billing and paying the bills. I was never looking at a balance sheet or a P&L. So there was just a lot of financial acuity that I was lacking. And there was QuickBooks at that time, but it was all desktop. So if you wanted to get reports, you had to get it out of that one computer. The computers weren't connected or networked. So I was every year I was negative money, so I would borrow it, put on a credit card, get a loan. I had really good credit, so I started rolling out from 1996 to 2001. I had accumulated about $50,000 in debt that was not for trucks or skid steers or lawnmowers. It was just because we were short. Basically, that's the money I was paying myself. So I went from making $65,000 a year to making $50,000 a year, which that $50,000 a year I was actually borrowing. So I went from making $65,000 to really nothing. And we grew the business from $265,000 to over $800,000, and my income went in reverse. And my debt, went from very little to $250,000.
And you said $50,000 in debt at that point. So as you were growing from $250,000 to $800,000, you accumulated $50,000 in debt.
$250,000.
Oh, $250,000.
I was doing about a little over $50,000 of debt a year, not including the trucks and the skid steers and the mowers, because I was short every year $50,000. And basically, my prices were too low. We weren't counting any hours. There was no cost accounting. I was just like, sell, We need more money. Sell, sell, sell. Oh, we're short again. Sell, sell, sell. And this is a little over $800,000 in revenue in 19. This was about 1999. That's a lot of money in 1999.
Right.
I don't know it would probably be $3 or $4 million today, with no real systems or accounting reports.
And at this point, how many employees did you have working for you, and who were they as you hit that $80,000 or $800,000, that $250,000 in debt, and how many people did you have working for you?
So at that time, we had three-man mowing crews, which I learned is a huge mistake to have 3 guys on a mowing crew. And we had 2 landscape crews, and we had 2 guys treating lawns. And I would sell the lawn applications and lawn maintenance. And then I had another guy running the landscape installation, and he would sell the landscaping. And then him and I would both sell the plowing. So we were doing plowing, we were doing parking lot sweeping, parking lot cleanups, litter cleanups. We did these big annual contracts for the high school, and we were not tracking anything. We were just, that's a good number, that's a big number, let's sell that.
Okay. So what would be your word of wisdom that you would share with somebody that's kind of in that growing from 250,000, trying to push towards that million mark in their business, and they may be reacting the same way that you did, sell, 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 hire, we need people, and it's just kind of that reactionary business management mode?
The advice I would give is know your numbers, slow down, really understand what gross profit margin is and how you can use it as a tool, and to understand what a balance sheet is and how you can use that as a tool. I had no idea, so what happened was that growth plus buying the equipment was I had too much month at the end of the money, which means I had too many payments because I wasn't looking at the balance sheet and we didn't have a budget. So even if we were profitable, which I don't even know if we could have actually been profitable, but I didn't have any way to track it. And we still were broke because the profit, our net income, not profitable, our net income could have been enough. But once I took that net income and moved it over to the balance sheet to make all these payments, we were cash poor. So we were broke, even if we were making a good net income, which I couldn't tell you, we were broke because I was overspending on the balance sheet side.
Yeah, and I've seen that with small business owners where, there's this gap of, they see it on the balance sheet, they see what's on the P&L, but then there's just like this disconnect. It's like this blind side that occurs to where they're not thinking of the debt liability that's on their balance sheet and what happens, how is that debt liability going to be managed? And even if, let's say, they take that next step and they make the connection of the debt liability on their balance sheet to what their business is making and what's left over, there could be these other gaps that are in place to where they're not charging for their equipment cost correctly to make sure that the use of it is covered through the entire year based off of its average utilization on jobs. So they could be, doing all the right things, but then missing one step that can take them under on their profitability and even, the success of their business. So that's a very common place. And I've seen it with companies that are, just getting started at like 250,000 and all the way up to companies, that are as big as like 9 million, to where there's just this gap there to where they're like, well, what's really going on here? I don't understand why we don't have money. And there's some major piece of the puzzle that's missing.
Yeah, and I never looked at that. I was just like, well, we'll charge $50 an hour. That makes us the most expensive in the market at the time, back in the 90s. And the game was, well, we'll charge $50. Let's see if we can sell that. Can we sell it at 50? Yes. And then we raised it to 60, and then, okay, we can sell that. But there was no consideration with unbillable man hours. We weren't tracking what was billed, how long stuff was going to take. So even if we'll charge $50 an hour back in the 90s, but if I figure it's a 200 man hour job, but it takes 300 man hours, it's not enough money. So we weren't
Right.
tracking like actual versus estimated. So I have a strong feeling once I broke out all my numbers and we had these big annual contracts, I was literally plowing some of these big contracts for free. They had used the whole budget up on the green side. Now it's the snow side of the season, and we burned through all their money. So we were doing all that for free, and I didn't even know that until 2002 when we started breaking all the numbers apart and
Yeah.
actually tracking the man hours and jobs and everything like that. And it was just a disaster. It was just a disaster. Nobody
Yeah.
was tracking anything. I didn't even know how to do it. So
And the snow, you bring that up, and the first thing that pops up into my head, that can be the most expensive part. To where, I just think of a business like yours, and you're doing some landscaping, you're doing lawn application, and then in the wintertime you switch to those snow services, and just imagining giving all your snow services away for free and the lost opportunity around the revenue there, all because you pull back the curtain, and you're missing your tying your costs to your pricing. And it's and that's really what it came down to from what I'm hearing from you. It's that, what are our costs and what are we charging on everything across the board. And it just ended up, everybody gets your snow services for free, but you weren't pricing it to do that on the other side of the services you were providing
no,
either.
we were not. And even some of the lawn mowing, when we broke down every single account, when I went through that exercise, some of the lawn mowing was half price. We were literally giving it away. So we had to raise about 50% of our customers. We had to double their prices in 2002, and we ended up losing, a large chunk of them. Some people stayed and they're like, I wondered how you were doing it that cheap. We
Yeah.
we were under the notion that, well, it's right next door and there's two lawns across. We don't have to charge them X. We can charge them less because we're already there. And that was not reality.
Right.
Everybody needs to get charged part of that stop fee. And same thing with the cleanups and everything. When I looked at my landscaping, where I was missing my pricing on the landscaping was the travel and load time. So driving to the job in the beginning of the day and the end of the day, and then loading in the morning, unloading at night. So I was missing. I had the installs. We had the install part right, but it was on the edges. If it's an hour to load and drive there, that for three guys on a crew, that's 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours at night. That's 6 hours times 5 days a week. That's 30 hours that we weren't getting paid for by the customers, but I had to pay my guys for that.
Right.
And so that was a serious leak. Not have these seasonal contracts, not having the price, that was a serious leak. So it wasn't one thing, it was all basically not having our pricing right and not tracking hours. And the 3-man mowing crews, I have so much data on crew size now. I found out if you have 3 guys on a residential mowing crew, one guy's an audience. We call them audience crews now. One guy's watching, the other 2 guys are working. And it's not any faster. I have lots of data on that. A 2-man crew actually, for most residential, is not efficient either. A 1-man crew is the most efficient, profitable lawn mowing crew for residential. And if you get to really big properties, then you can start going to 2-man crews and 3-man crews. But you have to know what the number is. And you think, well, instead of having more crews, we'll just have more guys in the truck. And that, you're literally just paying a guy. It's almost like the tax. I was paying the not tracking my numbers tax.
Right.
By being the third guy in the crew. And it's once you track the numbers, and I'll have this conversation with other people, and they'll argue with me on this, but they're not. I asked them, are they tracking their numbers? Have they compared it against a 1-man or a 2-man crew? And they haven't. So they're just arguing from their right without any actual data, which I
Right.
probably would have argued the same. It's an expensive place to stand.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot in businesses where it's like labor, payroll. There's this kind of generic statement that, oh, payroll's the biggest bleed in small business. But, I take the next step and I go, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for you and your company? What does that look like for you and your company? And in talking to small businesses, and when we have them do like the profit assessment, or utilizing some of our tools to where they're starting to look at, the scalable growth business model profit assessment and putting those numbers in there, it starts providing this clarity on where the bleeds are with their labor and, really honing in on that. And one of the common questions that I ask is, what is your labor burden? And they say, what is my what?
Yeah.
So it's like there's this labor burden, and what labor burden is, it's your hourly cost of your employee's wage. It is your taxes associated with that, your employer taxes. It's your workers' comp insurance. It's your benefits. You need to look at like if you give them sick time or paid time off. So it's all the things that pays that laborer, to do the work that they are there at your business to do. And so they'll price around their wage, but they won't price around their labor burden. And that's a typical, very common, like, oh, we're missing a couple pieces here. That's then taking down the whole ship.
Yeah, and that labor burden in my company averages about 27% because you have workers' comp, then we have to match the FICA, and then you have other, we have a IRA, simple IRA match, and you have workers' comp. So then if you're not figuring 27% of your labor cost and you're estimating and bidding based on, doing without not counting on that, that's a huge chunk of change. I didn't even know what a labor burden was at that time. I could have not had that conversation. I would have not even known where to get those numbers. And we were using the payroll system, paychecks at the time, but I could have not told you. I didn't even look for it. I could have told you if I knew what it was and what I was looking for, but I didn't. And the unbillable man hours is what, we weren't tracking at all, because if you have a guy who works 40 hours a week, but I only charge for 32, that 8 hours is unbillable. Either the customer has to pay for it or I have to pay for it. And I was paying for that. So there was a lot of untracked unbillable, which we just weren't tracking at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's common. It's these little missed pieces that, it goes back to the, as a business owner, we don't know what we don't know until we start to know it. And it's just these little pieces. It's a journey along the way to where, we learn, oh, well, there's our wages. Well, what goes along with our wages? Oh, there's taxes. Oh, well, yeah, to get better employees, we might need to, charge more and to afford better employees. Like, how do we get there? And, well, what benefits do our employees want? How do we start providing those? So it's really, I feel like there's several paths that an entrepreneurial takes, down that road of understanding, how to be a leader and have a good team, how to provide the best services that they can provide based off of their business model, how to understand their numbers and what do they need to understand, like what really counts and, what moves the needle faster. So there's all these different avenues, and even maybe, improving your craft, right? Because we typically get into a small business, like we start a business because we have a love for a craft, and that is usually what's focused on versus all these other things like, HR, marketing, finance. It's like they're the neglected side of the business.
Yeah, it's fun to talk about trucks and lawnmowers and mini excavators and fertilizer. I still enjoy talking about that, but I realize that that could only get me so far. That's only going to get me so far in business, or your craft can only get you so far in any business.
So I want to kind of talk about, your next journey. So your next phase of business that you went through, because this was you working your way up to $1 million, and, you had all this debt. You were accumulating $50,000 a year in debt while you grew your business. You were team heavy, so you had too many employees on your team that, I know you shared with me in the past that weren't doing what they should have been doing. They just didn't know what to do, but they were hired for certain roles. So let's talk about, after you made it past that million mark and continue to climb, and get out of this pickle that you were in your business.
So the plan was, 2022, I worked with a triage consultant that specialized in working with companies that were in really bad spots. And basically, we just started counting hours and looking at the cost of doing the business. So the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I had too much overhead. I had a lawn care manager, I had a landscape manager, I had a landscape designer, I had a lawn application manager. So first thing was we got rid of the landscape designer, we got rid of all the managers. We had over $100,000 in just labor overhead that we weren't recovering. So they were the first people to go, and I basically took over all the sales. And basically, if you were not working in the field, we had one office manager, one person working in the office, and everybody else was billable. So the first year we went from $7,000 in net income to over $160,000 in net income the following year. So we had a really large jump, and I worked 7 days a week for over 8 years. And when it was during the season, I would work in the field Monday through Friday. I would go sell on Saturdays, and then Sunday I would write estimates up and get ready to sell that the next Saturday. So half
Yeah.
the day Saturday was meeting with new people, and half the day Saturday was meeting with the people I had met with the last Saturday for landscape jobs. And I worked in the field and fixed equipment at night, whatever I had to do. It was a long 8 years. It took me 7 years to get out of that $250,000 in debt, because one of
Yeah.
the things I didn't realize was you're paying debt with net income, which is taxable, which led to another problem. Once we started making money, I hadn't paid a lot of taxes in years, so we weren't ready for that. We had a $45,000 tax bill, which I had to take a loan for to pay that. So that was a little bit of a kick in the stomach. But I worked my off for years, and I missed going to the beach with my kids. I missed
Yeah.
most dinners during the season. And I plowed. Lived in a plow truck if we had a lot of snow. We didn't have enough trucks for the accounts we had, and the plowing kind of saved us in the winter because we didn't have any type of. We weren't saving any money to make it through the winter. We just make it through the end of the year, make it through the winter, make it through the end of the year, make it through the winter, and that was
Yeah.
what we did. So.
So it was like a new level of a survival trap you were living in to like climb out of this hole, and the sacrifice that you're sharing, it's huge. Losing time with your wife, with your family, 8 years with your kids to where you're working, 7 days a week and, missing out on those things to try to build the business of your dreams, for your family so you could live the life of your dream. And I feel like, and I've heard so many stories of, debt and taxes and challenges around that. But the biggest loss that I always see and hear and feel in talking to entrepreneurs, that end up in these situations is the loss that they have in their connections and their personal time with the people that matter the most to them. And that is a huge sacrifice. And then also trying to continue to have the support from your biggest fans, right? Like the people you come home to, and hoping they understand why you're having to do what you do, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, it was very tough. I mean, that's all my kids knew really, was that I was always working. And after, about 8 years, around 2009, it got a little bit easier. We were out of
Mm-hmm.
debt and we are starting to make a little bit of money. But even then, I was only in that 5 to 6% net profit, which was just enough to get by. Literally was not enough to grow the business or thrive. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I have another 25 years of working my off,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to do it. So in 2010, I got really interested in finding out how am I going to make more money? What do I need to do to grow my business? I started reading financial books. I started with numbers, accounting for the number phobic, and that helped me to understand the terms more. I
Yeah.
got QuickBooks put on my desktop so I could look at the reports. And then I found Greg Crabtree's book, Simple Numbers, Big Profit. And that
Great book.
explained gross profit margin, what it was used for as a tool, and how to look at a balance sheet and how to use a balance sheet as a tool. And that really is where my company, you can just see, if you look at my P&L, where I read those two books and what happened. Our profit quadrupled. We were as high as 24.5% on net income once we got our prices lined up, and the company started to grow exponentially because we had profit to grow and we had money to hire good people. Before I was always a little bit, we're always struggling because I could only afford a certain level of quality of person. So knowing how to use that and the gross profit margin, the pricing, and then in 2015 when I read Mike Michalitz's book, Profit First, that even lined everything up because I didn't know how to handle the money we had. So it was like, okay, now we have money. I didn't know what to do with it or how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle cash flow still, or how to build a profit savings vault. So it was great to have the money, and I did use the money. I felt like I had to make up a lot to my kids and my wife. So we went on really nice vacations. I spent a lot more time with my family from 2010. And to this day, I still do. So, because I always had that sense, and my wife never said, you have to make this up to me and you have to do this. But I just had this internal feeling that I need to make up with it for them because, there was 8 years where I was just really minimally around. I never took my kids to any of their doctor's visits, their dentist visits. I went to all their school stuff, but I was not there in the day-to-day of their lives.
Yeah, and you were grinding through, and I know you struggled, with how happy of a person you were because what you were sacrificing and how much time you were putting into work. So, when you did show up, I'm sure as any of us, we wouldn't show up as our best selves.
Yeah, you're tired all the time. I had a lot of resentment towards my wife because I'm like, I'm working so hard and you're just taking care of the kids. And she had resentment toward me because she's like, all you're doing is working and I'm taking care of the kids. And we talked about it, and it was kind of like, because that's not what you get married for. You don't get married to where one person's carrying it. But, we worked through it, and so we made it through the other side.
Yeah, and that's hard. That's like marriage is hard enough. Let's throw some, entrepreneur train wreck in there,
Right.
And some kids and financial problems and life. And, it gets harder at that point. And it's a challenge.
It really does.
Yeah.
And, this is the story of so many people. And that's why you and I are doing Green Profit Academy, because we don't want to see people have to go through missing the time with their family and having to just sacrifice their whole life to drive a business and miss what's really important.
Right. Yeah. And there's things that happen in our journey as entrepreneurs that kind of, we feel like we don't have a choice. We feel like, we got to do this or we have to do that in order to kind of stay, safe or, make sure everything's okay. And sometimes it's overextending ourselves. And sometimes it's playing small. So it can go both directions to where, you push too far and it takes too much, or you pull back, too far to feel safe and you're not doing, enough of your potential, and really living up to your potential of who you can be as an entrepreneur, building the business of your dreams, and you still feel conflicted. So I feel like there's both sides of the coin there. And I know, like your journey, you were saying you were making, about 5 to 8% profit, and we know that anything under 10%, your business it's hanging on by a thread. You're not surviving, you're barely thriving, and there's a percentage that you need to make in order to thrive. You're moving out of that survival, which, some businesses can be on death's doorstep at those percentages, and up into this thriving gross profit margin percentage. So I want to, switch gears here and talk about, where are you today? Like, what is your gross profit margin? What does your business look like? What does it become from, the hard work that you've put into it?
So going back from the days where I like used to have to talk myself into going to work, and Tylenol was my best friend, and taking 3 Tylenols just to go to work because I had to lay pavers again, to now where I have a chief operating officer that runs the day to day of my landscape company, and I have I have a full time bookkeeper, I have an office manager, I have a landscape manager, and they really run the day to day of my business. So from going to where I was, to where we are now, our gross profit margin is 60%, and that's on the whole company overall, and that gives us enough net income to pay for stuff, develop people, pay for our equipment. We have budgets. We have actual versus estimated budgets. When we do our estimating now, in the estimate, it shows what our gross profit margin is going to be before we even send that out. We're tracking unbillable man hours. We're doing profit first. And it's a completely different experience. This business is way beyond my dreams. I never envisioned a business where we have 30 employees, and we're not only part of the landscape industry, but we're a major part of our local community. And so that is part of that. I love that part, that we play a bigger role in our community. And so that's where we are now. And in my business, my landscape business now, I take 2 4-week vacations a year. And so my team knows how to run the business. They know what to do with the money, how to estimate everything. So it's been quite a transition, but it really started with having profitability in the business. So I could hire these smart people to help me build my company and have marketing money, and hire other coaches. I've worked with coaches, profit first professionals. Christeen, when I worked with you, you really helped me get my numbers finally dialed in where they were correct in the profit first model. So really working with coaches and other consultants to help me build this, because I only have so many skills. I don't have HR skills, and I'm not an accountant. And as much as I'd like to think that I like marketing, but I'm not a marketing master. I still hire people for that. So it's a completely different experience, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've been to your company, and I've talked to your team members, and I've been out there when they're getting ready in the morning, and it's just like this orchestrated event to where it's like they're just moving seamlessly, and there's all this energy, and they've got smiles on their face, and like they're excited to be at work and go do what they're going to do. And I've been with your staff in your office, and they love what they're doing, and they're passionate about what they're doing. And I know you've been really intentional about creating a culture in your business, and I can see the appreciation that your team has for the business that you've built, and how much they love being a part of it.
Yeah, we have super low turnover. We have about a 94% retention rate over the last 12 years, which is incredible in any industry. Mm-hmm. And we focus on building teams here and building individuals. One of my rules is you can't be the same person next year that you are now and stay in the company. So we have training. We have I call it our 1,000-day development plan that we roll out to everybody, and that goes over how they communicate, to their strengths, to how to lead, and how to be part of a team, and even on finding your why. So, which is very unique to any business, because my dream is to have a business when I come to work that everybody knows their why they get up in the morning and what's important. And I also give my team, they create their own vision statement for their position in the company. So they're creating a role in the company they want. So I'm not creating their role specifically for them. They're creating a role using their strengths and talents, mm-hmm. and a role in the company they want to work in 5 years and 10 years. And then my job as the owner is to help them acquire the strengths and the skills to get to their own vision. And it's a unique position for my team to be in, because usually if you're working in another company, you're just part of someone else's vision. But here I let them create a vision for themselves, and people want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and I love that, allowing your team to understand like what are their dreams, where did they want to go and creating that space and that environment. And I've heard other business owners, talk about like, oh, that sounds so hard. And I remember when I first kind of came across this concept, I was like, this sounds so hard, like that I'm gonna have to do all this work and really what I realized like it's a journey. It's little by little. And I started working on it, I think about, 4 years ago. And, really kind of looking at like, well, what are my team's strengths and what does that mean? And, how can we support, the people that work here and what does that look like? And I just invested a little bit of time here and there in the business. And, today now the team, it's like we talk about our strengths. We talk about, how we can do the things we love at work. We talk about, each other's strengths, and we have this I have your back, culture in the company to where we're checking on each other and, we're showing up where the other team member needs us to show up. And it's just automatic. It's just like second nature to us. So as overwhelming as it sounded in the beginning, it was a very easy and a highly enjoyable journey, I think, for myself and my team as we continued to look at these, these areas of our culture and the business and figuring out who's really good at what. And I can absolutely say, like, I have a team that they get stuff done. They're a highly productive team. And I know it's because we focused on, team development over the last several years, and it has a life of its own now. So it is a game changer.
It is a game changer, and we can connect it to a return on investment using key performance indicators. And I was kind of against it at first, and now I'm its biggest champion in the company. I just couldn't see how it was going to make us more productive or how it was going to move us ahead until, like you said, it's a journey. Until I started on my journey and the company's journey, and now like our lawn techs, we have lawn techs that are they produce at the top 2% in the nation, so they're just more because we were matching their strengths to where they fit in. So they're leaning on their strengths every day, as opposed to try to fit every tech in the same box, lawn tech in the same box. We're like, where can you lean into your strengths? What size lawns? What size accounts? What does that look like? What's the equipment look like? Instead of saying this is this and everybody get in line or get out. We really align their strengths to their talents, and we align that to the work that they're going to be doing, and it just shows up in the return on investment. Just shows up continually, and yeah, it ends up being less work in the long run because if people are showing up to support their vision and you're helping them, there's more buy-in. There's more. Forget compliance. There's more innovation. There's more creativity. There's more energy, and that's why. When you were here and you see how fast my crews get out or how efficiently,
They hustle.
they're hustling, they're fulfilling their visions, not just mine, and they're fulfilling the team's vision. And that's a more meaningful place to work, and it's a more meaningful place to show up. And
Yeah.
we have the numbers. I have the numbers. I have the net income and the gross profit margin that proves it year after year. And I could do something for 1 year, but when you're doing it consistently year after year, and we were just reviewing our numbers again with the bank, and they were just so amazed at how consistent our numbers are based on our percentages. And we're like, because we run everything by a system, and they are like, we just don't see that consistency in businesses. So, which was nice to hear that, but it's because of working with coaches and professionals, and really getting our systems lined up.
Yeah, and I feel like it's, when we're on the other side of this and we're going, oh, we have all this work to do. We've got to put in systems and processes and, get to know our numbers and, and then what else? And then what else? It seems like a lot of work, but being on the other side of it, I feel like we can both speak to it's less work than it was not doing all the work. It's
less work being able to sleep every Thursday night because I know not only do I know where this week's payroll money is, but I know where the next 6 weeks payroll money is. I used to be sweating Thursday night. Okay, I put those checks in on Wednesday. Are they going to clear by? Friday? So when people
Hmm.
cash their check, are they going to be good to go? It's way less work to do that. It's way less work to wonder if you're going to make money on that job. It's way less work to hire new employees. It's way less work to try to convince everybody that my vision is they have to bust their tails every day out in the heat, weather, sun, snow to fulfill my vision. So
Yeah.
it is more work up front, but long term, it is way less work.
Yeah, and I feel like it's less work doing it than the way that we used to do it. It's a lot less work, and it's just that change. It's making that decision that, okay, this is the path we're going to go down and I'm going to be dedicated to it. So, really choosing that entirely new route as an entrepreneur. So I want to ask you, what would you share with others who may be in a similar place that you once were?
So one of the things that I remember feeling was hopeless, and I didn't know who to trust. I joined the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a big fan of Chamber of Commerce, but there was no one there talking business, and now I know why, because they don't know their numbers either. They don't know the business part of business. They know their trade. So what I would say is reach out and find a coach that can help you, and a Profit First coach and is what I would recommend because they understand the numbers, and really getting some people development coaching also, because we just can't beat our people to death with numbers expectations. We have to support them and have them grow also. So I would recommend getting coaching. If I had not gotten all the coaching that I had gotten, we wouldn't be here. I would have been out of business. I
Right.
would have never made it through 2002. If I did, I would have been out of business in 2003. And if I hadn't got the coaching with Profit First and the Choice Map and the Clifton Strength coaching, I wouldn't be here. And all that has happened over the last 5 and 6 years. So
Hmm.
we still would have been. We were a production-driven company. Sell it, do it, sell it, do it. But
Right.
there wasn't a lot of growth for my people, and I couldn't grow beyond, since 2018, since we've started the vision of developing the team and growing the culture, my company has grown 2.5 times in its size.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't done that, I really feel that we would have just been that sell it, do it company. And it's hard to build a really mission-driven company, purpose-driven company around sell it and do it.
Yeah.
So I really think the growth, again, I have, the data in the revenue that says that building a team produces net income and growth.
Right. And investing in systems, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
and
all
and the
there.
profit first system. When we grew from 2.5 times our size in 2018, it was financially seamless, and it's because the way the profit first system, and when working with Christine and you dialed our numbers in, all the percentages just grew. They all fell into place. It was like dominoes. We didn't have to figure out what we should spend or how we're going to pay for anything. It was the last thing I had to worry about, was the money. It was always where it was supposed to be, when it was supposed to be there in the right amounts.
Yeah, and we need profit to grow in business. To scale and grow your business, you need profit, and growth can be different to different companies. So, when we talk about growth, it could be you want to, scale and grow your business with its revenue and your team and the entire, company. Or you could be looking at scaling and growing your business from a different perspective. Maybe it's the perfect size now. Maybe the revenue that it's producing is right where you need it, but you want to increase your profit margin. You want to increase your team engagement. You need to put systems and processes in place so you can get out of the day to day more. So there's different, perspectives on scaling and growing a company. And I think it's also important when you connect with a coach, it's connecting with a community. So that's been one of the biggest game changers for me is I am the only entrepreneur, like in my family. and my friends. And I don't have, there's, maybe like my hairdresser, she works on her own. She's self-employed, but it's a solopreneur situation. And so it felt very lonely for me as an entrepreneur to, do business and go through the struggles. And, I'd go, home after work and, talk to my husband, but he's corporate. He's not an entrepreneur, and he's very supportive, but it's a whole different animal, when you're an entrepreneur. And so finding that community through a coaching situation, it really makes a difference, because I've heard so many entrepreneurs say, even this, this retreat we just had, they said, I found my people. I'm not alone. And I've been there, where I have been standing in a room and I look around at all these other entrepreneurs and I'm like, these are my people. And some of my best friends now are in my entrepreneur groups, and they're amazing relationships I never would have found if I hadn't ventured out and connected, to more of a coaching community and mentors. And it's just been a great opportunity.
Yeah, definitely having, working with coaches and getting in their communities, it gets you, it's just gets you a bigger community of support, and people understand you. You don't have to explain things to them. They get you right away. They understand your struggles that you're going through. And, the encouragement that I have gotten is a big part of, why my company grew, why I kept stepping into my strengths, which is, growing people and growing teams, and not the doing of things. It is the building of. So, and growing people, building companies, and growing people. So I would have not had that encouragement. I would have just been alone, thinking and wondering and listening to people who didn't know my balance sheet or my P&L or understand my business model, giving me advice, as opposed to people who know my balance sheet and my P&L and my business model, giving me, asking me, actually not giving me advice, but asking me the right questions, asking me powerful questions to make me think so I can figure it out on my own, but asking the right questions in the right sequences. And that's been a game changer. And, I was just thinking when earlier, growing the company more than 2.5 times the size it was in 2018, and taking all this time off and I built, I kept stepping out of, I took my roll chart and I just kept stepping out of each bubble I was in. So, thinking back, it's about tools and working with the coaches, like what's next, what now, what's the right question, what's the next question, as opposed to just putting my head down. I grew up blue collar. You know what you do when you're blue collar? You go to work. You're sick, you go to work.
Right.
You don't feel good, you go to work. Things are tough, you go to work. And that's what I did. And it could only get me so far, especially on my own.
Yeah, grinding through is not the way. So, and it's tough.
It's not as much fun as this way, as growth and being in a community with other business owners, lawn care owners, landscape owners, other coaches, accountants, other contractors. It's a totally different life. And my wife, when we're with these other couples, the couples even get each other. There's like a different understanding of couples. The wives get each other, the husbands get each other, because we are all living in the same kind of lifestyle.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, what are the first 3 things that you can do to start making a change in your business?
Well, depending on where you're at, the first change that I would recommend, and this is a hard one, and I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but I had to get over myself. I had to get over myself that, hey, I went to college, I have a degree in economics, I took business. My minor was marketing. I know about all this truck. I can do it on my own. I don't need anybody. So my first advice is just, I had a creative awareness, like, guess what, buddy? You don't know, and you can't do it on your own. And one of the things I ask people now is, it was one of the first questions, who's on your team? And I didn't have a team. I didn't have the right people on my team. And that just doesn't mean in my company, but I didn't have the right financial, I didn't have the right accounting on my team. So my first advice is to get over yourself, and like reach out. You don't have to do it alone. It's okay. You're actually going to look way smarter and be way healthier if you get a team. I mean, that's why footballs have, there's football teams, not football
Right.
player. So get over yourself a little bit. It's okay to reach out and need help, and then work with a professional that does business. So a lot of people look to their accountants, and I love accountants. Some of them accountants are good friends of mine, but they're tax people. They're not necessarily business people. They've been trained their whole life to do tax strategy and tax planning, but they don't necessarily know the day-to-day business part of running a business. So I'd recommend getting a coach that understands the day-to-day of how to run a business financially and with people. And then the third thing is to take a little bit of time, regardless of what your strengths are, and either listen to the books or buy the books. Listen to Profit First for lawn care and landscape businesses. Read that, especially if you're in the green industry. If you're not, I would still read it, because there's a lot of things other people in other industries have read that book and go, oh, okay, now I get it. And read Profit First, Mike McCallum wrote, and read Accounting for the Numberphobics, because I didn't even understand the terminologies that my accountant was using. So I would just nod my head, and he's thinking I'm understanding, and I had no idea. So that's definitely a book I would read. So those are my 3 recommendations.
Yeah, and I also love and I talk about this in the Profit First for Lawn Care and Landscape Businesses book, the pumpkin plan, and there's so many methods in there that you can apply to scale and grow your business, and there are systems that you can use again and again and again. And I know, Steve, you have used them. I have used them. I coach people on them, and it has been a game changer for them. Implementing systems, identifying their ideal customer, all of those things. So really getting dialed into their sweet spot of their business. It made it easier.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much that has impacted my business that it's hard to fit it all in this podcast. And so the Pumpkin Plan was the first Mike McCallum's book I read. And I was like, oh, we're going to do that. So I tried to implement it as best I could. And it actually was very helpful. But as I started working and meeting with pumpkin planters, and it was, dialing in that sweet spot. And that's why we do the least amount of services that we've ever done in my business now. 40 years into it, we do the least amount. We know exactly, not only with the deliverables, but also who the customer is. Like, we have a very particular customer, and we have over 3,000 customers, but still we have a very particular customer that understands us. We understand them. And our purpose is, for my company, our why is for mutually fulfilling relationships. So I don't even want customers that are just transactional. I will need to make their life better, and they need to help us make our company better. So we want a customer that understands that, hey, we're in it for the long haul. We're in it for the relationship. We're just not in it for the money. And if it's only transactional, then our relationship is probably not going to work, because we want to work through things together and be there for each other. And that's kind of our why. And there's happens to be thousands of people that want that to be part of their experience with a contractor. So, the Pumpkin Plan was it saved us over $60,000 a year in marketing and advertising expenses, because we were just throwing it out there, and whoever showed up was our customer. And that was just really, that was painful, actually, to be everybody's contractor.
Yeah, and I know too, and I'll throw this in there because it's a big number. It saved you all $1 million in equipment spend.
Yeah, so we just eliminated the equipment over those years that we didn't need to buy to service the wrong customers. Yeah, that was huge. I mean, having equipment to serve customers that aren't your sweet spot customers, aren't your giant pumpkin customers, just because you can buy the equipment, operate it, you know how to estimate it, but every time you do it, it's miserable, and it's just painful. Yeah, so.
Yeah. So $1 million out the gate and $60,000 a year. I mean, those are some pretty numbers there.
There's some big numbers. I mean, it's really a small fortune. And what it really allowed us to do, it gave us space, time, and capital to focus on our sweet spot customer and how they communicate. And they don't communicate the same way as, that's why we don't have discounts, and we don't do the $29.99, anything, because that's not our customer.
Right.
They want to call up, they want to talk to somebody, they want somebody that knows what they're doing, they want to have this relationship. It's their house, it's their home, it's where they
Yeah.
live every day. It has more value to our type of customer than just buying a bargain $29.99 anything.
Right.
They
The
want
check
for
the
the
box.
then right, check the box. They want to have that.
Yeah.
People are people, and I know it doesn't work in every market. It doesn't work for every contractor, but in our market and our company, it does.
So I just want to kind of recap everything that we went over today. First of all, Steve, I want to thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable about your journey, because I know it was tough and I know it was emotional and there was a lot of sacrifice there and some really hard lessons learned. So I absolutely appreciate that, and I'm sure our listeners do as well. And so you shared, how you started out and how it was easy, and then it got hard because you added, people and costs, and you started accumulating debt, and you paid the price of working out of that for 8 years of 7 days a week and time lost with your family, and then learning the valuable lessons of where to invest in your systems and processes in your business, and how to better connect with your numbers, utilizing the books that you connected with, and like Profit First and Pumpkin Planning, and Greg Crabtree's Simple Numbers Big Profit, which is a fantastic book. And then what you've built your business into, that's given you the freedom that you have now. And I know you said you take 2 4-week vacations, but I know, almost every month you're off doing something else for, another week or so. And because I know we go on site visits to companies, we have places that we go, for Green Profit Academy and, conferences and other stuff. So you've really built, a freedom system in your business. And I feel like I could say it's fueled by Profit First and Pumpkin Planning and some good solid systems, and, an amazing culture in your business.
Oh, absolutely. In our mission, vision, and purpose, you will see profit woven and pumpkin plan woven into our mission, vision, and purpose. And those are the tools that we identify that we're going to use to accomplish what we need to accomplish to serve our mission, vision, and purpose. So it's all quantifiable, it's all numbers, it's all data, which I do love. I love looking at the reports. I don't like putting the reports and chasing the data down, but
Yeah.
I do love to look at the reports and where are we going and where we're headed. So that has played a huge, huge part in that. And right, I mean, I take the vacation time, but also you and I are going around the country visiting our clients, contractors, attending conferences, putting on our retreat that we just had in
Yeah.
Granville, Tennessee, and a number of other activities. So typically am away about 1 week a month on the road, doing some business stuff, and then take the other time off to spend traveling, or even just locally relaxing and doing some things
And getting our coaching. Like, we've got to go,
yeah.
see our coaches and the people that we work with, and
Right,
spend
and
some time
we
with
are
them.
also. I
Yeah.
still have coaches. Yes, I still
Yeah.
get coaches, and I still have blind spots in my business, and I need people to ask me the hard questions and point things out to me. Yeah, you're never there. I have a saying, you're never there. And I plan on working for many more years. I love the landscape industry. I truly believe that people in the lawn care and landscape industry are the hardest working people I know, and that's why I love Green Profit Academy, because it helps those people in a really specific and unique way. And I love coaching and helping people. It just really lights up my world. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. I always love talking about small business, and it seems like we can talk about it forever. Our next episode, we're going to be talking about recession proofing your business. So there's some great content there, some tips that we're going to be sharing, like the focus areas. So tune in there, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Christine.
Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast.
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.